Welcome to this edition of the Veteran Voice. I have a question for you today. How many people does it take to change the landscape of America? We'll be discussing this with our guests when we come back right after this. Welcome back to the Veteran Voice. We have some very distinguished gentlemen with us today, and we're going to discuss a subject that a lot of people talk about, but not too many people really understand what we've lost as a nation. On my left is Mr. John Davis. He's commander of the local VFW Post 1191. In the center, we have Reverend Rodney Wallace, and he's from the New Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Benton. And we have Mr. D.R. Johnson, I'm sorry. D.R. Johnson. He's the commander of the American Legion. We're glad to have you all here with us today as we discuss this very important subject. Brother Rodney, could you tell us a little bit about the religious freedoms that have just been massacred in the last few years?
Well, Michael, I have always considered myself very fortunate to have been born in the United States of America. I have, as a minister of the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, considered myself very fortunate to see some of these religious freedoms continue. But I've also seen some that seems like it's been taken away from us. I can remember a time, even as a young child in school, when we would have men come in and pass out Bibles, and it seems like that's been taken away from us now. I can remember a time when we could open up our session of school by saying a Bible verse, and no longer do we have that, or we could pray, and we can't do that as we once could. And I see each one of these freedoms that we have had slowly being taken away from us, and it disturbs me greatly.
Thank you, Brother Rodney. What is causing America to change? What is happening in this world that this nation is not the nation that it used to be? It has changed. Some say for the better, but the majority says not for the better. D.R., you have any comments on that?
Well, I feel like it's just the generation that we have now is different, than as we grew up. They have a lot more things to, do. Or we didn't have computers, and stuff like that, like they do now, and they just a different generation of people to doing things.
Yeah. John, what do you think has caused us all this trouble that our freedoms that have been paid for many times over by the blood of our soldiers? How can somebody let that slip through our fingers?
I think the biggest problem is the American veteran that is still alive has, for all practical purposes, the majority has turned their back on voting. We don't stress or push anything like we did in the 70s even.
So you think we've kind of brought this on ourselves by our apathy?
A great deal of it, yes. We've been perfectly content to sit and watch the world pass us by, not knowing which way we were going.
Well, haven't we learned anything from other countries that have done the same thing we're happening today? I mean, there's been other countries that have started out in one mode, and over the years they've changed. Usually the change is for a minority as opposed to a majority.
Right.
It seems like one person can get up and say, we need to change this, and nobody stands up to defend what was, and they just accept what will be. Our veterans have played a great part in all of that, but even they do not defend the liberties like we once did. I can remember when the VFW and American Legion, 1,000 strong, you know, and do the warriors that come home today, do they show the same sense of patriotism and involvement as we did?
Well, these boys that's coming back from over there, if they get out of the military, you know, and they'll start a family, and they really don't have time to come and participate, you know, with stuff we have. We have a few that do, but most of them, you know, like I was when I got out, I had a family to start, you know, sort of, you gotta get a job, you know, and everything, support that.
You had mentioned something a while ago about the distraction. Everything in the world distracts us. Brother Rodney, could you elaborate on that, some of these distractions that the home, the family faces today?
Well, when we forget about our grassroots, when we forget that our nation was founded on religious principles, when I go back and look at the Declaration of Independence and see 56 people that signed that declaration, 34% of those 56 quoted directly from the Bible. 64% quoted indirectly from the Bible. And it seems like to me that they thought it was important enough to birth this nation in such a way that religious principles would be prevalent throughout the years. We've gotten away from that. And because we've gotten away from it, it has affected our family, our community, and our country as a whole.
John, how much do you think Vietnam had to do with this change from black and white TV, mom cooking supper for the family in the evening, they sit down and talk, and maybe a television program every Saturday night? Do you think Vietnam had anything to do with that change?
I think it had a great deal to do with it. The reason I say that is before Vietnam, in World War II, you didn't see any pictures of battleships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, anything. You didn't see any soldiers until after the war was over and won. And then you could go to the movies and you could see short runs of where the 101st at Bastogne beat it. In the early 60s through the mid 70s, every night, night in, night out, sometimes they'd bring a special on and show how many people were killed, how many Americans were killed versus how many Vietnamese. And so many times they had absolutely no idea, because we were told at one time that we would count blood trails as being a dead person. And you know as well as I do, everybody that was American that got drug out of that battlefield didn't die. Yet we were told we counted that Vietnamese blood trail as a death.
DR, what John was alluding to is maybe the media had some part in this change of America. Do you agree with that the media played a part in that?
I think they do, because it seems like they're there first, you know. They're there before our boys are there. It seems like a lot of times.
Well, do you think we became numb to war as long as somebody else was fighting it? It wasn't numb to the families that were burying their son or daughter. It was very real to them. But the population in general, they just really got turned off by it because it was not affecting their life at that particular moment in time. Brother Rodney, have you had an opportunity to visit with some of the families of our slain servicemen and women?
Yes, I have, and you know, without exception, these family members have told me how proud that they were of their children that was able to serve this country. Now, of course, sorrow is there because they lost their lives, but they're still very, very proud of those people. And you know, I too and I think we all can say how proud we are of those young men and women that serve our country, and how we ought to uphold them and support them in every way that we can.
I know we went to Fort Campbell a few weeks ago. They had a welcome home for Vietnam veterans. Well, it was 40 years too late, but it came finally.
That's right.
Are we showing the guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, are we showing them the same type of welcoming that we got at Fort Campbell a few weeks ago?
More so than we would ever have seen. They're every day on the news you hear about some National Guard unit from Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, wherever, and their unit is coming back, minus the people that were killed over there, but yet they're coming back and they're having a big homecoming for them, where that never would have happened.
I know
for us.
Here at Channel 2 and WKCTS, that we're going to have a real hero come in and for a lecture. The man's name was Marcus Luttrell. I don't know if you ever heard about him or not, but he was with a group in Iraqi. I think it was about 30 guys in his unit there, and he's the only one came back. And he has a magnificent story to tell. I can't wait to meet this gentleman. But we still have those heroes.
Yes,
they have not
yes,
gone away, as some people would like to proclaim. We still have those heroes, the men and women that stand fast and say, I will serve my country and I'll serve her well. How do you think the public views them? Because there's increasing animosity towards the war, but is that animosity going to trickle down and it's going to affect our relationship with our servicemen? John?
A perfect thing of what you're talking about is I watch a lot of outdoor hunting shows on Saturday. Foxworthy made a statement that just absolutely turned me against him. He was talking about a Navy SEAL that his unit was sent to Afghanistan, and out of 20 of them that went in there on the mission, 19 of them were killed. And Foxworthy made it sound like he was the only American hero that ever came out of Afghanistan or Iraq. And I don't know of anybody that went in service that didn't realize that there was an excellent chance that they wouldn't walk back in.
Well, I think that may be the Mr. Marcus that we were talking about, Luttrell. I can't imagine that. I mean, in Vietnam, like you say, it came to the home. Now, I don't know how much it affected the home, but it had to affect the children that were growing up during that era. And it also had to affect the public. What do you think the public's perception is today of the men and women who fight for our freedom? What do you think the public perception of them is?
Well, they see it on TV about every day about it, and I think they just take it as it's something they watch every day, and it's.
And are they too numb by this
Yeah, I think
everyday type of thing?
They don't think about it
Until
It's
the
like
knock on the
TV,
door.
yeah.
When the knock on the door comes, everybody knows it.
Yep.
But I mean, that's why we've had to have the Patriot Guard, because they were doing things at funerals, you know, to disrespect and dishonor any man or woman that serves this country faithfully, doing whatever with whatever service, wherever, is in a sense an American hero. Now, he may have not have done all the big things like a lot of people do and get credit for, but they have done the best they could do with what they were told to do. I mean, that's just
There wasn't a Audie Murphy that came out of Vietnam by any means, shape, form, or fashion, but the guys that were in Americal divisions, their chances of coming home was next to nil in a unit like I had.
Well, it was like the 173rd too in the Oshaw Valley, I think it was.
Right.
I mean, they went into it and they didn't realize what they were going into.
They had no idea.
And you take a hill, you take Hamburger Hill, and you turn right around and run off and leave it. Enemy comes back, you go, well, that's not a very good use of
Quezon
American
Valley
life.
was taken 4 times.
Yeah.
And look at how many thousands were killed each time we took it.
Do you think this is going to escalate, Brother Rodney? The feeling, the animosity that people are starting to feel about the war? And
I think, Michael, that when our nation as a whole, we're sitting here today because of those men and women that have given of their lives and provided freedom for us. But I think that our nation comes together when our nation goes to war. We see, as a minister, I know when our nation is in war and we go to war, we have seen attendance increase, we have seen prayer meetings break out and those kind of things. And I think all these things are important. But the media sometimes plays it over and over and over. And many times we see the negative, the bad things, that we get so infiltrated with those things that we just want them to come home.
Yeah.
Just come home.
well, DR, tell us a little bit about this Supreme Court case that's being deliberated as we sit here today. What was the basis for all this?
It was for to do away with a lot of our monuments. That's what they was wanting to do, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think there's some person somewhere had
They
a
were
problem.
Take the religious aspect away from a veteran's gravesite.
So as the Supreme Court is deliberating this, it's my understanding that if they go the wrong way on it, that in theory we could lose all our memorials that have a cross on it or any other religious symbol.
Absolutely.
There's something terribly wrong with that.
That's right.
There's something really terribly wrong when one person in one lawsuit can destroy what has been put up as a memorial to our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marine.
To the thousands and thousands.
I have not heard a public outcry about it. Maybe some people didn't know it. Maybe some people's not aware of it. But that's another one of our loss of freedoms if this thing goes the wrong way.
And you know, Michael, when I see that cross that is standing there and now is covered up till we get a decision on that, I don't see it as a denominational thing. I don't see it as a Baptist, Methodist, Catholic thing. I see it as a symbol to honor and remember those fallen veterans that have given their lives. That's what I see it as. And they gave their life that we might have the freedoms we enjoy today.
Well, it's my understanding that in the memorial or the cemeteries like Arlington and other places, that there's a cross for each service person.
With the exception of the Jewish, and then they have the cross.
That they have their own cross. So I'm wondering why America is sitting back and letting this guy destroy what has been paid for in blood. I don't understand that, and we're going to get a decision from the Supreme Court hopefully later on. But I don't understand how one person can have the power. Who gave him the power to do that? Is it the very freedoms that those men and women fought to defend?
Basically, yes.
So we gave him the right to do what he's doing. That's what America's about.
Yes.
But it also gave me the right to speak out against it.
That's true. But sometimes we neglect our rights.
Right.
We just sit back and, well, maybe somebody else will do that.
That's
Yeah,
the biggest thing that's wrong with America is we have given up the right to get up and speak.
But yet we allow other people that could just destroy everything we've served for, and I don't quite understand that. But
I don't either.
this memorial, just a plain cross sitting out in a place nobody's probably going to go see it. It's just way out in the desert.
Well, they said there was like 5 people in every 30 days that passed by that cross.
But this guy said, if I drive by it, And I look at it, I'm going to be offended. I'm just wondering what else offends this man. I can't quite understand that. Something he hasn't seen, hasn't been by, hadn't got out of his car and looked at it, hadn't felt what that cross delivers. And yet,
how many times has he been offended driving by a cemetery?
Yeah. You know, I mean, where is this madness going to stop?
Until they take it all away from us, it won't.
Well, is American Legion and VFW, are they going to stand up against this?
I would hope that we can get enough people interested in the fact that we have lost and are losing our constitutional rights that we will start talking about it.
Well, DR, if they take that cross down, then they can theoretically take every cross down.
Well, sure.
And
Yes.
is that not the aim of these people, is to destroy every symbol of Christianity, or, you know, even, I mean, is that what their goal is? Is that what they want?
I think so. I believe so. As a minister of the gospel, when I see that cross, I see it a little bit differently, maybe than some. But as Paul said in the Bible, he said, I will glory in the cross. And I thank God that he has kept his hand upon this nation and has led this nation in such a way that it is still known as a Christian nation.
Yeah. Well, it is, but every year there seems to be a further degradation.
It's dwindling.
You know, it's
dwindling.
incremental. We'll take
Right.
down the cross over here today, and then tomorrow we'll be up at your house and take your
It's
cross
dwindling.
down, and then we'll come over to your post and take that flag down in the post.
Yeah.
And one day, if we don't stand up and defend those freedoms that we enjoy, we're not going to have any, plain and simple. I'm not a radical type person, but I love my God and I love my country. And those things are being taken away from me, or a symbol of them. They can't take God out of your heart, but they can tear
I
down.
remember as a high school student listening to a group of students talking one day, and they were talking about taking the religious flag down from churches. And I asked them why. And they said, well, it's offensive. It's the religious flag isn't in the Roman Catholic Church. It isn't in the judicial congregation. Why should it be in ours? I said, why shouldn't it be? It's what we believe in.
Well, people,
That's exactly what they're doing now.
the people are afraid of the cross.
Yeah.
And the power of it.
Yeah, because that's the only explanation I could even think about why you would want to do this. Is you're afraid of that thing. I don't understand what it is, but I know that you kind of like it up there, and John, you like it. I know Brother Rodney does.
Amen.
So we're just going to tear all this down, and what do we have left? Nothing. So it's something we need to be aware of, and we need to start investigating these things, and don't give them a free pass. We didn't give the enemy a free pass. We stood
Dwight
and
David
fought to the last
Eisenhower said
minute.
it best.
Do what?
Dwight David Eisenhower said it best.
What was that?
There are no atheists in Vauxhalls.
Well, it changes your attitude, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Well, we don't hear that rhetoric anymore that we heard back then in the 50s and the 40s, and even with John Kennedy, because he said at one point that this nation would fight any foe, welcome any enemy, or something like that, that we would fight for our freedoms. That's what he was getting down to. And we don't hear that rhetoric anymore. It's just, let's go to the man that got offended by the cross, and let's lift him up above all. And you guys from the Legion and VFW, you know, you're the one that's going to have to lead it. You've got a lot of members, and I'm one of them.
Well, you stop and think about how many veterans organizations. I'm a life member of the VVA, the DAV, AMVETS, VFW. As many veterans members, organizations that we have, why is it so hard for us to stand together.
Well, you know, a long time ago there was a saying by the hippies out in Frisco that suppose they gave a war and nobody came. Suppose they bury a soldier and nobody comes for fear that they're going to violate a law. When we get to that point, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm sorry. That's just, you know, and Brother Rodney?
Here's another saying too, Michael. If we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything.
Mm-hmm. So I think it behooves the people of this United States of America that we do find a common ground. We can outshout them and we can outvote them and we can out-talk them, but only if we do it. If we don't do it, then it means nothing.
That's true.
If we don't stand up and start doing it, we're not going to have the opportunity to do it.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here today. DR, good to see you. Brother Rodney, good to see you. John, good to see you, man. This is Michael Swinford, and this has been the Veteran Voice. We've been discussing freedom today, and as soon as we get Supreme Court ruling down today, we will pass that along to you. But for right now, we'll see you later.